Yo, welcome to my channel, Ward Draws a Lot. Obviously I'm Ward, or I wouldn't have named it Ward Draws a Lot. According to my clickbait, today we're going to be using a Prismacolor manga set. Now I've always seen this in the store, and I've always really wanted to use it, just to see if it's actually worth the $6 that it is. I mean, $6 is already a great price, but is it worth spending that much on it? Maybe it's worth more or worth less, who knows? Well, I know because I've already used them, but you guys don't know yet, unless you've already used it too. So, what are we getting in this pack right here? We're getting, according to the packaging, it says 7 pencils, 2 markers, and 1 eraser. But in specific, we're getting 2 Prismacolor color erase pencils, 1 in blue and 1 in red, 4 different graphite variation pencils in 2H, 2B, 4B, 6B, yeah, there we go. Yeah, I had to remember them. And we're getting 1 black pencil as well for further depth in shading. We also have 2 inking pens, 1 in a brush tip and 1 in a bullet nib. And we also just get a regular eraser. I don't think there's anything special with the eraser at all, but it's still a pretty good eraser. Now, since this is a manga set, within it included a how to draw manga tutorial little pamphlet, which the art style is a little outdated, but I mean everybody draws the way they do. I can't say anything about that. And it gives you step-by-step instructions by saying use the color erase pencil, then ink, then color. And you know, it's a pretty nice guide for people who don't know what to do at all. And for me personally, since I know what to do, I didn't really need to look at the guide, but it was still very useful for somebody who doesn't know what to do at all when it comes to drawing manga. Now, in order to make sure I know how my supplies work, I'm going to be testing them on paper just to make sure I know how they look like and everything beforehand. I used to use these kind of graphite variation pencils all the time. I just kind of grew out of them because I started to do color and not so much black and white pieces anymore, or just graphite pieces anymore. Each one, I use the same pressure when applying them to the paper. They obviously have a nice different gradient of color, and they would be very useful for shading. The color erase pencils are very nice. When I sharpened them, it didn't take too much, and they didn't break off. I even checked several times to make sure it wasn't loose graphite in there. It was extremely light, so I had to use the pen, by the way, to write that it was a color erase pencil. The blue and the red were very nice variations. Sometimes you want to work in a different kind of layer, first with the blue, then the red on top, then the graphite, or you could use either one for shading as well. The next 2 things I try out are the nibs, and they come in the bullet, which wasn't a bullet tip, that was broad, she was thick. And then we also have the brush tip, which was honestly pretty thick too. That took me by surprise because whenever you do manga and inking for it, you want to use smaller tips, so this way it looks nice and thin, and it doesn't look too stiff and bold. It all depends on your art style, of course, but for manga in specific, usually you want thinner lines in certain areas and thicker lines in other areas. And lastly, the eraser. I wanted to test it out on every single graphite amount just to make sure it would erase, and even on the color erase pencils. It worked pretty well, just your average eraser. So, like I always do, I begin out with my color erase pencil, but this time I'm just using a blue one instead of the pink one because that's what came in the pack. And I begin to sketch just a little doodle, just to try and see how things work. After I finish the sketch, I go in with my liners, and then I begin to line the drawing. The liners are very thick, and it was difficult to take such fat liners and then put them on a smaller drawing. So I suggest that if you're going to be using this kit, draw bigger for the liners, or do the smart thing, which I didn't do, of course. Use the black pencil for finer details around the eyes and the face and the nose, stuff like that, so it comes out much sharper than it would with the ink in this case, or like these liners. Because they're so thick, it looks a little like pudgy and messy, so maybe that would help. Or I'm not sure, or don't use the liner at all and just use the overall piece with the graphite. There's a lot of different techniques you could totally take this by. I use the red color erase pencil for the cheeks, and I used the different numbered graphites to further shade in the hair and the shirt, so it looks like it's more sectioned out, the hair, and it looks like there's some kind of wrinkles on the shirt. I also just used my finger on top to smudge it all in together and make it look a little bit more blended. I used to do that very often when I worked with a lot of graphite materials back in the day. So after I finished the first little doodle, I went and made another little doodle. I wish I would have just did one big drawing instead. I feel like that would have been more useful to me personally, because I draw entire pieces more than I doodle little ones. But I still think it was a good representation of how the materials work. I did the same technique. I used the blue color erase pencil, I inked on top, and then I placed the ink where I wanted it for like the hair and then the shirt under the hoodie. And then afterwards I used the graphite pencils for shading of the sweater, and I used the blue color erase pencil for his jeans. Overall, I think this set was actually pretty nice. It's great for beginners who want to learn how to do manga, and for $6, honestly, you can't go wrong. So, thank you for watching, and remember, I love you.